It was the restaurant chain that wasn't really about the food. It was about the fantasy. Cold beer, hot wings, and women in tight orange shorts. For a while it worked. It worked really well. But now, Hooters is a shadow of its former self, quietly fading from the spotlight it once dominated. So what happened? Why did one of the most iconic and controversial restaurants in America go from cultural phenomenon to punchline? To truly understand the dramatic fall of Hooters, we first have to rewind and look at its improbable, almost accidental rise to fame. The story begins in a place and time that few would expect to birth a cultural phenomenon. It was 1983. In the laid-back beach town of Clearwater, Florida, 6 local businessmen, none of whom had any real restaurant experience, decided to open a new eatery. The idea started as a joke, a tongue-in-cheek response to the stuffy dining options around them. They wanted to create a place that was fun, irreverent, and unlike anything else in the area. Their vision was simple: combine cold beer, televised sports, and a heavy dose of sex appeal, all served up with a heaping plate of chicken wings. It was a recipe designed to attract attention, and it worked. The Hooters brand was born, and it didn't shy away from controversy. Its marketing leaned hard into the objectification of its waitresses, all under the banner of so-called harmless fun. The uniforms were skimpy, the attitude was cheeky, and the message was clear. This was a place where rules were meant to be bent. The company even coined a slogan for its unique brand of irreverence: delightfully tacky, yet unrefined. It was a badge they wore with pride, setting them apart from the competition. And the public? They couldn't get enough. Hooters quickly became a gathering spot for friends, sports fans, and anyone looking for a good time in a lively, unpretentious setting. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Hooters exploded in popularity. Lines snaked out the door, and the brand became a pop culture icon almost overnight. The chain became synonymous with a certain kind of male-centric dining experience, like a never-ending frat party, but with chicken wings and beer on tap. It was brash, bold, and completely unapologetic. For a time, that was exactly the appeal. Hooters didn't try to please everyone, it knew its audience and doubled down on its image. By the early 2000s, Hooters had grown into a massive chain, boasting over 400 locations across the United States and even expanding internationally. The orange and white brand was instantly recognizable, no matter where you went. They even took their brand to the skies with Hooters Airlines in 2003, a real airline, complete with Hooters girls as flight attendants. It was a bold move that captured the spirit of a brand that never played it safe. At its peak, Hooters wasn't just a restaurant, it was a brand. They sold calendars, merchandise, even energy drinks. The Hooters girl was an institution, like a Playboy bunny for the sports bar crowd. Celebrities stopped by, athletes endorsed it, there were beauty pageants, contests, and corporate events. The company positioned itself as America's neighborhood restaurant. But let's be honest, the draw wasn't the buffalo shrimp. And yet, beneath the surface, the cracks were already forming. What was once seen as cheeky and fun started to feel dated and awkward as the culture shifted. By the 2010s, the cracks in Hooters' foundation turned into full-on fractures, threatening the very core of the brand's identity. Hooters began facing some serious headwinds, with mounting challenges that went far beyond just a dip in sales. The first major issue? Changing cultural norms and shifting attitudes about what was considered acceptable or appealing in a restaurant experience. The restaurant's entire concept was built on the idea of ogling women while eating a burger, a formula that had worked in the past, but was now starting to feel outdated and problematic. But as society evolved, so did consumer expectations. People wanted more from their dining experiences than just a gimmick or a theme. Millennials, the new generation of diners, weren't as interested in objectification wrapped in a basket of curly fries. They craved authenticity, inclusivity, and a sense of belonging. In fact, a 2017 study found that 60% of millennials actively avoided dining at restaurants they perceived as sexist or outdated, sending a clear message to the industry. The restaurant model, once profitable and even celebrated, now looked increasingly tone-deaf and out of touch with the times. At the same time, competition exploded. New sports bars and eateries were popping up everywhere, offering fresh concepts and modern atmospheres. Chains like Buffalo Wild Wings, Wingstop, and countless local sports bars offered better food, better service, and didn't rely on a gimmick to draw in crowds. They focused on quality and experience. And then came the elephant in the room: declining sales. The numbers were impossible to ignore. From 2012 to 2016, Hooters saw a steady decline in foot traffic, with fewer and fewer people choosing to walk through their doors. Younger consumers weren't showing up, opting instead for food trucks, gastropubs, and modern eateries that better reflected their values and tastes. Even die-hard fans were starting to drift away, leaving Hooters with a shrinking customer base and a growing identity crisis. Hooters tried to change. After years of criticism and declining sales, the company realized it couldn't just rely on nostalgia and its old formula. The world was moving on, and Hooters needed to adapt or risk fading away entirely. They introduced new uniforms that were more modest, hoping to appeal to a broader audience and shed some of their controversial image. The iconic orange shorts were swapped out for longer, less revealing options in some locations, and tops became less form-fitting. They tried healthier menu options, adding salads, grilled chicken, and lighter fare to the menu. This was a clear attempt to attract families and health-conscious diners who might have avoided Hooters in the past. In some locations, they even ditched the iconic short shorts altogether, replacing them with pants or longer shorts. The hope was to modernize the brand and make it more inclusive. But every attempt to modernize left the brand stuck between two worlds. Too tame for the old-school fans and still too problematic for new ones. Loyal customers felt alienated, while new guests remained skeptical. Worse, many critics accused the chain of failing to create a safe work environment for its employees. Stories of workplace harassment and discrimination continued to surface, overshadowing any positive changes. Lawsuits, allegations of harassment, and an outdated corporate culture further damaged its image. The brand's efforts to rebrand were constantly undermined by negative press and legal troubles. In 2019, Hooters was sold to a private equity firm, often a bad sign for any struggling business. Franchises started closing at a rapid pace and international locations quietly disappeared from city streets. By 2022, over 100 locations had shut their doors permanently. Once busy restaurants now sat empty, a stark reminder of how quickly fortunes can change in the restaurant industry. They even launched a spin-off called Hoots, a fast casual version without the skimpy uniforms, hoping to reinvent themselves for a new era. But for Hooters, it was too little, too late. The brand's identity crisis and years of controversy had already taken their toll. So what went wrong? It's not just about being politically incorrect, it's about being out of touch. Hooters doubled down on a business model that depended on a very specific male fantasy. But the world changed, and they didn't. Their competitors understood that sports bars needed to be inclusive to survive. Families, women, younger generations, these are the people who now drive the market. Hooters never really figured out how to pivot. Add to that the rise of delivery apps, a pandemic that hurt dine-in experiences, and a growing national conversation around gender and representation, and it's easy to see why Hooters got left behind. The chain still exists, but it's no longer iconic. It's just there, a relic of a different time. There was a time when Hooters meant something, maybe not something deep or particularly tasteful, but it stood for a very specific kind of American pop culture. Now it's mostly a memory, an orange-shorted ghost of a bygone era. This is the story of how a restaurant built on wings and women became another victim of time, and how failing to change can turn even the biggest brand into a fading footnote. Like, comment, and subscribe for more cultural deep dives.